So if you watched my video I did yesterday, I was trying to get this 6-cylinder engine out of this 47 Chevy, trying to get it to spin, and just ran into problems. I think this number 3 cylinder is stuck. It's still got oil in it from a couple days ago, and it just doesn't want to move. So I think that's the problem. I gave up on it yesterday, but the more I thought about it last night, I thought, you know, the least I could do is pull the oil pan off and see if there's anything else we can do with this. And who knows, maybe we can get it running. We'll get the oil drained out and then get this oil pan off. What I'm planning on doing is taking the rod bolts off and trying to push this piston up if I can, starting with number 3 cylinder, and we'll see what happens. But it looks like the screen is full of it. But yeah, there's rust in there, quite a bit of it. So I'm gonna pull that rod and or pull the bolts off the rod and see if I can get that number 3 piston to move. So the number 3 cylinder that I'm suspecting is the one that's locked up. You can see the bottom of the piston right there and the cylinder. It's got a lot of crud on it. I think that's our problem. When you take an end cap off of a rod, you want to protect the crank from getting any damage. So what I've got here is just a couple pieces of 3/8 fuel line, and just slide it over the bolt to protect the crank when you're messing with that rod. I'll get this other one installed. Crossing my fingers here. Ha, look at that. Turns easy. That's what it was. Now I just got to get that one piston loose. Yay. Here we go again.
Welcome to U.S. Bank Stadium. This is Minnesota Vikings football. 10-2 Vikes against the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons. And this is exactly what Jonathan Bernard calls so valuable. Everyone knows about him rushing the passer, coming in this game with 10 sacks.
Now that we have the rod disconnected from the crank on number 3, let's see if this piston will move. It might still be rusted in there, but it maybe will move easier. All right, so I turned on the crank a bit. Good news, I was able to get this piston to move. And right now it's at the top, and I got the crank down, so this is gonna move quite easily. So definitely good news. Now, I did notice though, as I was turning the crank, that the back piston had a little bit of a crunch to it. So I need to do a little cleaning up back there too. But things are looking up. Because all the pistons are moving now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back together, put that rod cap back on, just see if I can get it to spin free, clean up the best I can, and then just start cleaning the head up, getting that cleaned up. Again, I'm going to mention, this is not for long-term running. I just want to make it run just for a few minutes. So I'm going to just do the bare minimum. So with that, I'll do a little more cleaning up and then start putting it back together. I haven't torqued down number 3 rod cap all the way yet, but check this out. I just want to give those rings a better chance of sealing if I can. Got it cleaned up. I think we can work with that. Now it's just a matter of getting the head back on, and we'll start working with the rest of it. If I get this motor running, I'm giving it to a guy that I work with, and along with the rest of the drivetrain from my truck. So if it'll run afterwards, great. Some of you might be thinking, why waste all this time? Well, like you, I watch these videos, and I just haven't had an opportunity up until now to do something like this. This engine was included in the truck that I bought. I have no intention of using it, but I thought, why not? It's a chance to dig into it, have some fun, get it running, and then get rid of it. And this is costing me very little. I've got some PB blaster, I've got some cleaner. I'm gonna need to buy some spark plugs. I don't have any plugs that'll fit in here laying around, so I'll just get some plugs, but that's pretty minor also. When I tap on these valves, you can hear the spring. You can hear them, they're moving. They all sound good, except this last one. It's dead. So let's see if we can get this to move. There, it did. Looks like I'll have to work with this one for a while. Get it loosened up. Okay, I think it's loose. Give it another shot here, just to make sure. Yeah, it still might be sticking a little bit. Oh, there's a lot of crud in there. Looks like once again, that number 3 cylinder might be a problem for me. Looks like that valve was kind of beat up or pitted or something. I'm going to pull the carburetor apart as long as I'm at this point. give that a good cleaning. I guess the needle's stuck up there. It's not moving. Good enough. For the oil filtration on this engine, this line plugs into the oil filter canister, and then there's another line that runs out the bottom and connects right here. I don't need the filter. I'm gonna fast forward here a little bit. This filter had a line, as I think I explained before, that comes out the bottom and goes into that port in the engine. And the inlet for the filter is here, which used to run down to that line. So what I've done is I just put in 2 pipe nipples, some clamps, and a hose. I just looped it around and bypassed the filter. All right, well, I got the head cleaned up. I got the head gasket on. I've got the engine block cleaned up and ready to put the head back on. I'm gonna use this drill bit to help line up one of the bolt holes. That should help me drop everything into place. All right, so I got that in place. Everything else lined up here. Putting another one on the other side is going to help me as well. Get this thing lined up, and I should be able to just drop it right on. I'm going to try and get this bolt started before I drop it all the way down. Okay, get that one started, and I'll go around and put some more in. All right, everything should be lined up. I set my torque wrench quite a bit lower than what's required, just to get these snug down a little bit. All right, all the head bolts are torqued down. I've got the rocker arms installed, and I was turning it over and the back valve was sticking like I had before, and I had to loosen it up. But I tapped on it and it seems to be working fine now. Looks like all the valves are working as they should. Need to put the oil pan on next. I bought some gasket sealer to put on, and rather than using the old cork gasket, it was all torn up and I didn't want to buy a new one. I can use the gasket sealer for other things, so I figured I'd just pick up a tube of it. I've got the starter pulled out. I've got everything else put back together. I got the oil pan back on. All I need to do is dump in some used oil, put my starter in, double check the points, get some gas to it, and I think it's going to be ready to fire up. Only thing I'm missing is a battery. Where am I going to get a battery? I've got my battery hooked up, positive side to the starter post. I've got my solenoid hooked up on the positive side. ready to test this. I have not done this yet, so hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face. Here we go. Works great. Just a quick lesson here on how to wire an old engine like this for starting it. I've got my power going to my battery solenoid, or the starter solenoid running to the battery. This is my start wire that I touch on the battery to get the engine to turn over. But I got to make the rest of the ignition hot. So this wire, the positive on the coil, goes to the battery. That's your run wire. So if you hook that up to the battery to make it run, when you want to shut the engine off, you disconnect it. I've got my ground wire going directly to my points, and then I've got a ground from my distributor to the block. That's really all it takes to run it. I've got new plug wires and new plugs, just because I want to make sure this thing works. I filed the points. I've got my run wire hooked up. All I've got left is my start wire, which is this one, running to my starter solenoid. And I've filed the points. So I'm going to touch this start wire on the battery cable, or on the battery terminal, sorry, and let's see if we got spark. I guess we're ready to fire this thing up. All right, try it again. All right, try again. I could go to O'Reilly's or someplace and just get a compression tester. See if it's worth my time.
The thing is, it never really changes. It's pretty constant.
Yeah.
And I don't hear anything. Usually you hear air when you turn it over.
Yeah. Right?
A little oil down the spark plug holes.
Oh,
That helps, yeah.
Oh, give it some compression?
Yeah, that usually helps.
It's kind of same, isn't it? All right, yep.
Wonder if it was getting hydro locked with all the oil and all the gas.
Maybe. Maybe 2 PSI in the second one? Nope. That's probably enough. I don't need to test anymore. Well, this is the end of this video and obviously the end of this engine. We just didn't have any compression in cylinder number 2. Cylinder number 1 was very low. I just stopped at that point. Also, I noticed when I was spinning it over that there was no oil coming to the top of the engine, which means it probably didn't have any oil pressure as well. So were there other things I could have tried? Maybe like checking the timing, whatnot. But allegedly this engine ran when it was parked. I also noticed that there were some noisy bearings while we were spinning it. Obviously you could hear the starter. Starter wasn't all great. And we had a full charge on the battery multiple times. We charged it, put the booster on it, whatever, but it wasn't spinning quite fast enough to really run well. I'm not keeping this engine anyway, so at this point, why continue? Were there some other things we could have done or some other things I should have tried first? Yes. First thing I probably should have done, because I know that these cylinders, or the rings were bad, they weren't seating. That number 3 cylinder was stuck. One of the things I should have done first of all is I should have, because I suspected that and I took that rod cap off and got that loose, I should have done that right away. But it's a lesson learned. I was trying to, when I was pounding on all these cylinders, I was trying to turn the whole engine over at the same time. I should have just isolated that one piston, got it loose, and got it going. But anyway, this engine's coming out. The Cummins is going in, different transmission, different rear end. So obviously we've got some work ahead of us. So again, end of the engine. Thank you for watching. If you would, please hit the subscribe button and like button if you like this video. And we're gonna keep going with this truck and get it running with the Cummins. Thanks again.